Hey everyone, I'm going to try and do a second take of this video, and I'm going to try and keep it short. I'm going to show how to get the chicken off the farm in Save the Homeland. This was discovered a few weeks ago. I managed to find a way to do it with the horse going out of bounds, but then the next day, Desert and Demo graciously found a way to do it inbounds. So obviously, in a speedrun setting, getting the horse is a whole extra investment. So doing this inbounds means we can do it in any percent. We can do it without any major time investment at all. This is also very useful for casual playthroughs. Any casual players out there want to mess around with this? It's one of the coolest kind of glitches in Save the Homeland that actually has an application. Actually, kind of like first glitch besides horse out of bounds. But anyway, okay, we'll keep it short. So as you can see, I have the chicken. If I approach the road to town, it does not let me go. It's going to play this little text box, and it's going to push me right back. This text box triggers around, like in the general vicinity of the loading zone, but it's not exactly overlapping with the loading zone. And if you are very careful, you can get into a position where you are touching the loading zone, but you are not touching that barrier that triggers that text. Now, even though you can do that, the game still will not trigger you to go through because it seems to have an extra fail-safe where it still knows that you're holding the chicken. It doesn't want you to go through with the chicken. So we kind of need a way around that. And I found that simply by pressing R1 while you're holding the chicken, it will literally trigger the load as long as you're touching it, and again, as long as you're not touching that barrier. So normally R1 is the quick inventory button, which lets me cycle through my inventory. But then also, if I'm holding something that can go in my pocket, it will put it in my pocket, right? The chicken does not go in your pocket, so it plays this little kind of, can't do that sort of sound. And it also makes you stutter step. There's something funny about this state we don't fully understand yet. Maybe it has more applications, but for now, I'll just show you the setup that Desert labbed out, which is a pretty good normalized setup. So basically, we're going to approach this corner. There's a hill behind me, and if I turn my camera all the way to the left, it's going to bump into this hill, and it's going to prevent the camera from going any further. Now, if I hold straight up on the D-pad, I'm going to sort of ride this edge of the hill in front of me, but I'm eventually going to hit this corner where I can't go any further. And I'm going to attempt to just tap down, straight down. So again, I'm just using the D-pad just to get into a slightly lower position. There's like a little smudge, like a dark line that sort of lines up with the toe of the character's left boot, the right boot from our perspective. And then I'm going to try and tap down and left at the same time. But it's just sort of difficult to do. You want to use the D-pad because you can at least press exactly down left. Excuse me. Whereas if you're using the stick, the angle is going to be variable. But pressing both down and left at the same time on the PlayStation D-pad I find a little bit tricky. But anyway, and there's no way to go like a set distance, so we're kind of just eyeballing it here. We don't want to hit that trigger, obviously. So you can be spamming R1 this whole time because we're trying to trigger the load as soon as we touch it, so that we're careful that we hit the load without touching that barrier, right? Again, very, very kind of finicky, but... And then, as soon as we kind of get... You probably want to go lower than it looks. I think I was going too high most of my past attempts. Yeah. Nearly. There we go. Okay. Okay, that's good enough, I guess. Again, it's very finicky. There's not much better advice I can give you than to just play around with it. So anyway, we have the chicken off the farm. So your first thing you'll notice is you can't go into any buildings. The only buildings that you're allowed to go into are basically any building on your farm. Your house, the barn, and of course the chicken coop. So one thing you want to make sure you do is, or that you don't do, is you don't want to set the chicken down. It will crash the game. There's only one exception to that, which I'll show you in a minute. For now, so the main use of this is that it actually acts as the only spam that we know of in Save the Homeland, meaning that I can show it to a villager as many times as I want, and it will continue to raise their affection. So if you know anything about Save the Homeland's affection system, the first time that you talk to a villager, you always get an introductory conversation. This is a New Game Plus file, so this is technically a new year. It's only like Spring 4. So this is Dia's introduction. For most villagers, you get actually an extra +2 if you're holding any item, because it's as if you're giving them a gift for their introduction. This doesn't apply to every villager because every villager's value is different. But for the purposes of the introduction, holding the chicken counts as holding a gift. So if a villager has an extra +2 gift intro, they will get the gift intro. Dia is not one of those, so it doesn't matter. But so this is her introduction. So it's like +10 or +8, I can't remember. But then every time after this that I show her, she's getting +2. Not every villager is a +2. It basically is their default like lowest gift boost. Most characters, gifts are +2, +4, and +6. Like they're split into classes, and it's going to give them, in almost every case, I think every case actually, it's going to give them their lowest. For the sprites, their lowest is +3, so they get +3 from the spam. There's some differences, but anyway, so I can do this as many times as I want. I can max her affection 255. You do have to be careful because as you're doing this, every time you clear the text box, like the in-game clock is ticking, which means her walk cycle will start if it starts, or if it triggers, she will start to walk away. So obviously, just like other sort of gifts, as typical in classic Harvest Moon, if she moves away and she's not in range, then I'll throw the gift. In the case of the chicken, it crashes the game, so you have to be sort of extra careful with that, especially in speedruns. But anyway, so I can do this as many times as I want. In a game like this, where basically raising the affection of villagers is the whole point of the game, and then just basically triggering all the cutscenes for any given ending, this is extremely broken. It hasn't been fully applied in speedruns yet, but you can imagine it's not the most like sort of interesting strat. You literally just spam, and then you trigger all the cutscenes, but it's fun to mess around with. So anyway, so that shows the spam, and again, you can see can't enter any buildings. To my knowledge, it's, I even tried like pressing R1 and trying to enter the building at the same time. Doesn't seem to work, because again, it allows you to trigger the cuts or the loading zone on the farm. So I'm not really sure but it doesn't seem to be any way around it. So anyway, so the point of that is that if you're going to be using it, you want to make sure that you're the villager that you want to target is going to be outside at the time that you go out. So you just have to know the schedules. So this is the one exception to putting the chicken down. On the brownie farm, you can put the chicken down because it actually, for some reason, because this is the only other area on the map that has animals besides your farm, it defaults to the horse, right? But one of Bob's horses. And I can actually put the horse down here. And you can see I'm not holding anything in the menu, but if I do this, it now still thinks I'm holding the chicken, right? So the chicken's model has disappeared, even the horse's model has disappeared, and I appear to be holding nothing, but the game still thinks I'm holding the chicken. Now if I leave Brownie Farm, it will still appear that I'm holding nothing, but at this point, if I put the invisible chicken down, it will still crash the game, so I have to be careful with that. So the only exception to the spams that I know of so far, I haven't tested everybody exhaustively, but from what I can tell, the only exception is Kurt, which is sort of unfortunate because he is one of the main big gift targets for Fishy Story. He needs 160 affection to complete that ending. And the spam does work on him, but it caps at 20. So you'll see that he actually gets +4 from the spam initially, so he gets his intro here. And then all gifts for Kurt are +4, which I think is why this happens. But then they change when he gets to 20. Like certain gifts change. Like tomatoes are worth 6 at that point, minerals. So keep doing this, and then you can see now the text is different. And for each of these, he's getting 0. So unfortunately, he seems to be the only exception to the rule. So fishy story, you're gonna just have to do it the old-fashioned way, sadly. But every other ending that I know of, this benefits hugely, especially like treasure room, right? So if you want to get rid of the chicken, you can trigger any cutscene. One of the easiest ones to do is every time you enter the goddess pond for the first time in a given year, you're going to get this introductory goddess cutscene, right? So as soon as, I'll skip it really quick. As soon as you've done that, you've lost the chicken now. So you can use that to sort of quickly get rid of the chicken if you, for some reason, just don't want to keep carrying it around. Because again, it is a liability to carry around, as long as you have to, because you have to be careful not to set it down. But if you trigger any cutscene, I will say that's another difficulty is some cutscenes for certain endings, they take place inside. So if you want to be able to trigger a cutscene like that, then you have to have a way to get rid of the chicken. So you either have to trigger a different cutscene for the ending, or you just have to sort of exploit the goddess cutscene at the spring there. But as you can see, though, just to demonstrate, the chicken is back here. Any cutscene will send the chicken right back to the chicken coop, so just don't forget about it. Anyway, so that has been Chicken Off the Farm. Big thanks to Crazy Berserker for his first horse out of bounds video, which kind of cracked this case, and Desert and Demo for labbing the inbound setup. So any questions, definitely post a comment. Thanks, everybody.